It was a historic night for Indian MMA as Puja the Cyclone Tomar picked up her first UFC victory in a tightly contested split decision against Hayani Dos Santos. As far as history is concerned for India, Puja is the first Indian woman to make her debut in the UFC in a proper UFC card. Sure, we've had Kiran Singh and Priya Sharma fighting on the road to UFC tournament, but Puja is the first to make her debut in a proper UFC card and the first woman to pick up a win as well. Just like Anshul's win pushed Indian mixed martial arts to the mainstream, hopefully Puja's win also pushes women's mixed martial arts into the mainstream as well. Now, there's been a lot of talk about it being a tightly contested decision, and a lot of people have said that it's been a robbery. And after watching the fight maybe 3 or 4 times, I can still see why people would think that Hayani Dos Santos won. As per our analysis in our earlier video, we talked about how Hayani Dos Santos was basically a ground fighter, right? She's a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. 8 out of her 10 wins were by submission. And in this fight, she basically attempted only 3 takedowns and decided to strike with a seasoned striker like Puja Tomar for the entire fight. Again, I've got to give props to Puja because she really improved her takedown defense. And in every round, Hayani Dos Santos tried to take Puja down but was unsuccessful. Puja defended every takedown with a certain amount of technical acumen. Right? A lot of people were saying, oh, it's a robbery. Dana White's looking at growing the Indian market, etc., etc. Like this is like, but you got to remember that again, like as a lot of people have said, not every close fight is a robbery, right? Sometimes the judges are looking at things from a different angle, 3 judges in 3 different spots. So you are going to get conflicting views. And at the end of the day, for India and for Indian MMA, a win is a win is a win is a win. 10 years down the line, nobody's going to sit and be like, oh yeah, this fight happened here and she did that. No. She's won her debut in the UFC, and that's the historic thing that people need to remember. It's a win for Puja Tomar, and as Indian fans and Indian MMA fans, this is a win we have to take and we will take. The argument is that Hayani Dos Santos did more to win the fight, right? And sure, if you look at the significant strikes, she did land more than Puja, but if you look at the total amount of strikes thrown, you can clearly see that Puja had a higher output. And maybe she didn't land at the percentage that Hayani did land, but Hayani Dos Santos also, in my opinion, lost the fight. She didn't fight to her strengths, which were takedowns, ground control, submissions, and decided again to fight a striker on her own terms. This is what you call bad fight IQ. Another thing that Hayani Dos Santos was not doing very well was she was not cutting the cage at all. Right? Cutting the cage means good lateral movement where you trap the opponent in a certain part of the cage where you can start unleashing blows on them. And it was only until the 3rd round when Puja was very tired and very fatigued that Hayani Dos Santos had any kind of success when it comes to this strategy of putting your opponent and cutting the cage off. But for the first 2 rounds, she was having a really tough time containing Puja. Puja was able to move laterally, was able to move out of most of the shots. And sure, a couple here landed, a couple of shots, big shots from Hayani Dos Santos did land, but Puja wore the damage well and fired back. The main thing you have to remember is that Puja fought Hayani Dos Santos on her own terms, right? Which is what I think of when I look at someone winning a fight. If Hayani Dos Santos had pushed the pace, put her up against the cage, grinded her out there, maybe attempted takedowns, took her down, controlled her for a little bit, made Puja work back up onto her feet, and then taken her down again, like run that cycle, then maybe we could have said, yeah, she completely got robbed. But the main thing you have to remember here is that Hayani Dos Santos was not able to implement her A game against Puja, while Puja Tomar was able to implement her A game against Hayani Dos Santos. And that's the main takeaway as far as the fight result is concerned, right? This is the way I'm rationalizing it of why Hayani Dos Santos lost and why on first viewing, it looks like maybe, Dos Santos had won the fight. But after repeated viewings, this is the conclusion that I've come up with. Again, we've said it was a very, very close fight. And our biggest takeaway is we really underestimated Puja's hands and her power. It was even when we were watching the fight, my producer called me at the end of round 1 and we talked about, if the fight goes on this way, where Puja is able to implement her strategy, she could come up with a win. And he was kind of right. She came forward and connected with the first exchange, showed off a relatively vast arsenal of kicks early and had Heian thinking about the kicks, right? She hit her with a beautiful body kick and that kind of put Heian on the back foot. And we've talked about Puja having hands and, that her boxing is relatively decent, but you could see that working with Soma mixed martial arts, she really worked on throwing combinations and with real accuracy and understanding her range, right? If you really look at how the fight went on, Puja fought the entire fight at her range, not at Dos Santos's range, and that was why she won the fight. And if you really look at the fight as well in the whole, Puja landed the most significant strikes. You've got to remember that body kick that pretty much folded her for a bit, and the elbow had come down to protect her rib, right? So Puja really hurt her there, and you could see it, right? That's when she shot in for a takedown as well, right? Again, there were exchanges where she had Amanda pressed against the cage and she gotten some clean licks as well. Her face was being, pieced up by Puja. You could see it, like there was damage that was being done to Amanda's face throughout the fight. You could say that maybe Amanda was landing the harder punches. But if you look at the statistics, the shots to the body and to the legs also need to be counted in the fight, right? Like, because these are damaging blows. And she was landing at a proper clip. She stuffed 3 takedowns, 1 in each round, in fact. 2 minutes into the 3rd round, Amanda tries to go for a takedown, hits a body lock on Puja. And you can see Puja was smart enough, pushes her back to the fence and does the correct thing, digs the underhooks, makes sure that Hayani cannot shoot for a single leg or a double leg takedown. Sure, there are no points awarded for takedown defense, but it goes to show that, again, Dos Santos was not able to implement her game plan, right? I'm sure she wanted to take Puja down, take her back and choke her out. But again, she was smart, avoided the takedown, avoided all the takedown attempts from Hayani. And one of the most important things I've talked about in MMA skill set is separation. She managed to basically fight off Hayani Dos Santos in the clinch as well. Yes, she did lose the 3rd round with 90 seconds left. You could see Puja was tired. It was a tough fight. And once remember I talked about lateral movement and cutting off the cage? Once the cage got cut off and she was stuck at a certain point, that's when Dos Santos started unloading heavy shots, and those were connecting. It wasn't a good look for Puja, and sure, she did come back and scream, and as far as I'm concerned, it was a little cringe, but she did show off the fact that she was in the fight, right? Like that she was there, she was focused, and there was nothing distracting her from that. So sure, give her props from that. Again, another thing I wanted to mention in round 3 was that she hit Hayani Dos Santos with a beautiful side kick. Full extension, caught her right in the midsection and knocked her down. What is a knockdown? A knockdown is when a fighter's butt hits the ground and their hands touch the mat. So as far as that's concerned, you could score that as a knockdown in the 3rd round for Puja Tomar. She knew she was coming up against a black belt. She knew that Hayani Dos Santos wanted to take her down, and she still managed to defend all the takedowns, keep it on the feet, and keep it relatively even in the striking numbers. Props to Puja for putting on all the work as far as the takedown defense is concerned. I got to give big props to Coach Mike. That speech he gave Puja at the end of round 2, where he told her, like, you're a girl from UP. Remember, you're a girl from UP. And if anyone who's watching this is from UP or has ever traveled to like North India, you'll understand that people from here have that fighting spirit. And you got to give it to the guy, man. He has a way with Indian fighters. The way he corners Anshul, the way he corners Puja, he's done a really good job with them and put them at a level where they can compete at the UFC. And I think that speech really motivated her, and she came out and had that fire in her that she wanted to win, right? That's the one thing I can say about Puja. She didn't come to fight to lose. Puja came to win. She came to win. You can say all that you want about the robbery, about the decision, but you cannot take away Puja Tomar's heart and fighting spirit. That is one thing you cannot take. You got to give her props for that. And you got to give props to her coaching staff as well for getting her to that point. And all in all, it was an incredible win for India, right? Like, we'll take it any way we can, man. These are small victories that don't come often. So whatever victories come, take those victories. They're important for us and important for the growth of MMA in the country as well. I'm hoping that Puja's win really puts Indian women's mixed martial arts on the map, just the way it's done with Anshul. And we have a lot more girls coming into gyms and to try their hand at Jiu-Jitsu, try their hand at striking. And maybe in the future, this grows into a bigger market that you can actually have good talent. So congratulations again to Puja Tomar for an incredible victory. Hoping to see more of her in the future. She's got a tough road ahead. Strawweight division. The strawweight division in the UFC is probably the deepest in the women's divisions. You have to remember, this is Weili Zhang's division. There are girls like Tatiana Suarez, like, who are much bigger, more physical girls moving forward. So Jessica Andrade comes to mind. Jillian Robertson comes to mind. Like, these girls are cutting down to 115 pounds from like 130, 145 pounds. So she's got a tough road ahead, but we wish her the best of luck. And thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, comment on the video as well. And always remember, live MMA now. See you guys.